Hi there once again, and welcome to another Expresso mechanic tutorial. And this is going to be another in the series of Python tutorials. A few weeks ago I was contacted by Nani Palapalali, and I hope I've said your name correctly. If I haven't pronounced it correctly, I do apologise. But anyway, he contacted me and asked if it would be possible to, say, drag a photograph into the scene window of Cinema 4D and create a plane automatically of the correct size and place the photograph on it. Well, that's not quite possible, but what you can actually do is drag a photograph into the texture manager here and drop it in there, and then basically I've got a tag here that we can use to generate. If I hit the generate now, what that's done, that's actually analysed all of these, it's generated some planes, and then I've got a padding control here. If I just touch that, we can see that it's placed them in the scene, and we can decide how much padding we want between the photographs or the planes along the x-axis. And in here we've got random position Y and random position Z, and we've also got influence controls. Now, we don't have to use these, we can switch them off if we wish, but if they're switched on, we don't have to use both of them, we can use them individually. But once they're switched on, we can decide how much influence we want them to have. So we can adjust this, and we can see that they're now randomly spaced along the Y-axis. And if we use the Z as well, they're now randomly spaced along the Z. As you can see then, there's quite a bit of versatility with regard to what we can do with the art direction. So, you know, quite a bit that we can actually work with. As I say, we can just switch those off if we choose not to use them, and we don't have to use any padding if we don't wish to. But anyway, that's what we're going to be about in this tutorial. So without further ado, let's see if we can make this happen. The first thing I'm going to do is bring in a null and rename it planes. The actual null here, what we can do is give this a tag, and it will be, of course, a programming tag, Python. So I'm going to use the Python tag to do this as opposed to a Python generator. Now we'll switch to a scripting layout, just touch upon this and open it in here, and we're ready to start work. The first thing I'm going to do is at the top here, import random, because of course we do need random numbers. And then in my main function here, we can get rid of all of this stuff actually. We'll just get rid of all of this. Get rid of these quotes. And then we're clear and we're ready to start work. The first thing to do is define some global variables. We only need two, so global, and it will be rand underscore y underscore pos, and I need an R on the top of that word, pos. Okay, and then rand underscore z underscore pos. So those are our two global variables ready to go. The next thing we need to do is say parent is equal to, and it will be doc dot search object brackets single quotes planes close single quotes. So we're interested in this object because that's going to be the parent object under which we're going to be placing our plane objects once we generate them. Okay, so that's done. Then we can think about the children. So children is equal to, and this will be parent dot get children open close. So if there's anything in here, if we've got any planes in here, we want to get them and put them into a list called children. That's what's going to happen. Moving on from here, we can think about, I'm just going to open this so that we can see what we've got in there. We've got nothing in there at the moment. We're going to be interested in our materials here though, and we're going to be dragging some materials in. So that's the next thing we're going to be looking at. So we can say materials is equal to, and it will be doc dot get materials. So as with our children here, we're going to be creating a list called materials, and it will be a list of any materials that we've got in here. That's what we're going to be doing. The next thing we need to worry about is adding some user data to our tag, and that will be our next port of call. We'll make sure that we've got our tag selected, and in our user data tab here, add user data. The first thing we're going to use will be actually a new group. We'll do that first, bring in a group, pull it away from the user data here, get it at the same level so that we cancel this one out, and then drop our data in. Our group we will rename controls, and that's sorted that one out. And then our data here, the first one will be generate, so we'll say generate. That will be a bool, so a boolean here, and that's fine. That's all set up and ready to go. We'll add some more data, and we'll call this padding. On this occasion, this will be a float, and it will be a float slider for the interface. A real value for the unit, and the step, I'm going to say 0.1. 0.1 should be fine. 0.01, 0.1, that should be fine. We can say 0.1 if you wish, but I think 0.1 is adequate for what we're doing. Now our limit for the minimum, we will say 0, and we'll put 500 in the max, and then clamp these two values so that we've got them there and they're not going to exceed them. So 0 to 500 is what we've got. The next thing I'm also going to do, I'm going to add another data here, and I'm just going to pull that one above there because I'm going to add a separator line. So we'll call this one a separator. We'll remove its name and we'll check separator line. So that's ready. We'll add some more data, but we want to go under padding, so we'll do that there, add some more data, and this will be random Y position. I'll just say random Y pos. And again, this will be a boolean because we want to check this on and off. Add some more user data, and we'll call this one influence. Again, this will be a float, a user data float slider, a unit of a real value, and a step of 1 this time, and we'll go 0 to 100. And once again, make sure that we clamp the values. That's great, that's ready. The next thing to do, we can copy this one. So I'll command drag this down here, if I may, if it lets me. I'll just do it directly under that one for now. Change this to a Z, and that's ready to go. We can just drag this down here, and then I need to copy influence, so I'll command drag that and drop it here. And that's perfect. That's our user data set up. We can hit OK, and we can see that we've got a tab with controls written in it, and everything is set up and ready to go. And these are all perfect. So 0 to 500, 0 to 100, and of course these checkboxes all do what they should. Fabulous. So the next thing we can think about doing then is dragging these into our window here and starting to do some work with them. We'll start by dragging in padding, and we can simply say, if we just move that to the correct level, padding is equal to op, and that's our first user data defined. We can then bring in our random position Y, drag that into here, just hit return a couple of times and say rand, I'll just say rand Y for this is equal to op, and that gets that one in. We'll do the same with rand Z. Just drop that in there. So rand underscore Z is equal to op. And then we can bring the influence controls in. So we'll bring the Y in first, and we'll call this Y underscore influence. is equal to op. And then finally our Z influence. So we'll drop this in here. Z underscore influence is equal to op. Okay, that's fantastic. So we've got what we need so far worked out and ready to go. So these are waiting for us for when we need them later on. So moving on from here, then we can start thinking about how we're going to use the generate and create the loop that will actually literally generate the planes that we're going to be placing under here. That's going to be our next port of call. The first thing to do is say if, and then bring this generate into here. So we can say if op is equal to true. So if we've checked this box, it is true, and we can see that we're getting a problem here straight away because we've got nothing under the if statement. But we'll worry about that right now and we'll get that sorted out. So if we have checked the box, what we want to do is start defining a few things. So we can say rand underscore x, or rather I should say y underscore pos equals an empty list. That's the first thing we need to do. We can then copy this, paste it in here and change the y to a z. So we've got two empty lists, and these are ready for the random numbers that we're going to generate. Okay, that's what we're going to do. So they're going to be the random numbers that we'll generate to use with our y and z influence. The next thing we can do is start looking at our children. So we can say if len brackets children is greater than 0 for I in range, and it will be len children double close, and we will say children brackets I close brackets dot remove open close. So we'll check to see if our children list has anything in it, and if it does, we want to scan through it and literally remove all of the children. So we want to clear our children list if we've got anything in there. Moving on from here, we can say if len materials is greater than 0. So if we've got anything in our materials, we want to start doing some work. So it will be for I in range. In fact, it will be in reversed brackets range brackets len materials treble close. So we're going, whatever we've got in our materials, of course, at the moment we've got nothing in there, but we'll start with the furthest material. So the leftmost material we'll be looking at last. Okay, that's how we're going to do this. We can then start thinking about generating some random numbers. So we can say RND is equal to, and it will be random dot uniform. So we're using random uniform on this occasion, and it will be brackets, and I'm going to say minus 2000 comma 2000, and it will be rand underscore y underscore pos is equal to RND, or rather it won't be equal to, I beg your pardon, it will be a dot append brackets random. That's what we need to do there. Again, we can copy this So we'll copy these and we can paste them here. We still want this line to be exactly the same, so the random numbers are going to be between -2000 and 2000 once again, and we simply need to take the Y out and put a Z in there. So that will give us 4, if we've got 4 textures, 4 numbers in each of our lists here. That's assuming that we've got 4 textures. It'll be any number. If it could be 100, so that's the way this is going to work. But anyway, that's fine, and we can carry on from here. We can then say mat for materials is equal to materials, and it will be square brackets I. Texture is equal to, and it will be mat. So we're creating a texture from our materials, which is of course going to be placed into a texture tag eventually. What we need to say is basically square brackets, and it will be C4D dot, and we'll hit caps lock for this, material. So material, and it will be underscore color underscore shader. So that's the first thing that we're going to look in. What we're going to do, in fact, I'll show you how this works. If we go into here and click on our material, if we open this up, so what we're doing is looking into our color shader. That's what we're interested in at this point. That's the first thing we're doing. We're then going to say open square brackets here, and we're going to say C4D, and it will be bitmap shader, and it will be underscore file name. Okay, now to do this, what we'll do, I'll just get rid of this. What we will do is open up the attributes manager here, and we'll start looking for a few things. Let's see if we can find, let's just say bitmap, see if we've got any bitmaps. That's an image, I don't really want that one though. Let's see what else we've got in here. We've got some materials, don't really want to look at those, I don't think. Texture might be better. Let's have a look, see what we've got in there. If we've got any images, let's have a look. I just want some images, that's what I really want. Doesn't look as if I've got anything in there. Let's just see if we've got, say, photo. Tell you what, I'll say JPEG. Just see if we've got JPEGs in there. Yeah, okay, this painting will do. Let's just bring this in for now. Drop this in here. Now, let's have a look and see what we've got. Now, so we've said that we wanted to look at our color shader, and then what we're looking at here, we've gone into bitmap and file name. So what we're looking at is this file name here. That's what we're looking at. We're going into this texture bit here, and we're looking at this file name. That's what we're wanting to get a hold of. Okay, so that's fine. So moving on from here, then we can start thinking about what we're going to be doing with our bitmap. So we can say BMP for bitmap. In fact, I'll switch off my caps lock now and say BMP for bitmap, and it will be is equal to, now it will be C4D dot bitmaps dot base bitmap. What we're really doing here is creating an empty bitmap. That's essentially what we're doing. Again, we can then say BMP for bitmap dot, and it will be init with. So initialize with is what we're saying here, brackets texture. So what we're getting from here, we're going to be placing into our bitmap. Okay, and that's what we're doing there. And this will allow us to actually get the size of the image that's in here. So the size of this image, we can see that it says the resolution is 1250 by 639. And that's the information that we want. We want those sizes. So we can then say X is equal to size. In fact, I've missed a line out, I beg your pardon. I need to say size, and that will be equal to BMP, so bitmap, and it will be dot get size. Open close. I can then say X is equal to, and it will be size, because size is a list, so we can say size brackets 0, and it will be Y is equal to size brackets 1. Now, if I was to say print size, and we executed this, let's just take this away. We can just do that. I don't know whether it will actually tell us. It may not. If we hit generate, it might. Let's just hit generate. No, we don't get anything. What have we got? C4D is not defined. Where are we? I've got an error in there actually. Let's just make sure of what I've done here. Yeah, I see it. I should have made that in lowercase. So C4D should be in there. Let's just execute now. And now we do get the size. So you can see that what we've done there is taken the sizes of our bitmap. If we go back to here, into here, we can see that 1250 by 639, we've got it there, 1250 and 639. So we've got the sizes of our bitmap by using the size variable here. So we've taken the bitmap and we've got its size. The size is a list featuring 2 elements. So size 0 is 1250 and size brackets 1 is 639. So that's fantastic. That's all working as it should be. Brilliant. Let's move on from here. The next thing we can say is plain. We'll create a plain variable, and that will be is equal to C4D dot base object, open brackets, and it will be C4D dot O plane. So that will give us a Cinema 4D plane object. We now need to think about what we're going to do with it. So we can say plane, and it will be brackets, so square brackets, C4D dot, and it will be prim underscore plane underscore. There needs to be an A in plane. Let's just get that in there. Plane underscore, and it will be width, and we can say is equal to X, so that will be equal to 1250, and then we'll just copy this and do the necessary edits, and it will be plain height is equal to Y, and that will be equal to 639. Fantastic. So we've got those two done, and then we can think about the axis that we want to align our plane with, and we're going to align it along the Z, or to be more precise, the minus Z. Let's just see what we're doing anyway. We'll say plane, and it will be, just to copy this piece, and it will be primitive axis, and we'll say is equal to 5. You'll see a little bit later what's going on here. because if we now say doc dot insert, and it will be object brackets, and I'm going to say plane comma parent, plane comma parent none comma true. That's the protocol for inserting this object under a plane, or under our plane's object. Okay, so that's fine. We're ready to insert that. Now let's see if this works. If we just clear this out and we'll just see if this does anything. And straight away we can see that we've got a plane in the scene and it's aligned along its z-axis. So if we select our plane object in here, we can see that it's placed under planes. Let's just see where we are. If we can look at it. I don't know whether I'm allowed to look at it, but it's flashing up and then disappearing. That's not really what I want to happen. I think the reason for that is because we need to switch the generate off. We just go into here and uncheck the box. We should be able to look at the object. Yes, we can. Right, okay, so we can see what's going on here. We've set the width and the height. We can see that we haven't touched the segments. We haven't done anything with that. We could if we wish to. But we've also set the axis, and we've said it's equal to 5, so that's equal to minus z. If I said 4 in there, it would be equal to plus z. So that's the way this is working. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So minus z is the axis that our plane is aligned with. Okay, that's fine. So everything is working the way I want it to so far. The next thing we need to worry about is putting the texture on the plane. We haven't done that yet. Okay, so that's going to be our next port of call. So we'll move on from here and we'll say text is equal to, and it will be c4d dot base text, base tag, I beg your pardon, base tag, and it will be brackets c4d dot t texture. So we're creating a texture tag. We can then say text dot set material brackets, and it will be materials brackets I. So whatever we find in here, so it's only going to be one material at the moment, but that's fine. So we've got our material set onto our tag. Moving on from here, we can say text, and it will be square brackets. Once again, it will be C4D, texture tag, underscore, projection, and this will be is equal to 6. And again, we'll look at this in a minute and we'll see what's going on. We can then say plane dot insert tag brackets text. So we're going to insert our texture tag on our plane with our material ready to go. So that's what we're going to be doing here. Now, to finish this off, what we need to do now is at this level, we need to say op, and it will be, we'll just copy this here. We just need that much of it. If we say op, paste that in there, and we'll say is equal to false. And that will switch the generator or the generate bool off. That's what we need to do there, because we only want this to be used once. As soon as we click on the generate, we just want it to generate the planes, put the textures on them, and that's as much as we want this to do. Okay, so let's go into here, click on the generate, and straight away we can see that we've got the painting on our plane here. It's set up correctly, and the generator's been switched off, so it's done its job. Now let's just click on the tag here and see what we've got. Now in the projection, what we've got is UVW mapping. That's what we've set it up as. So 6 is UVW mapping, and we can see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it does start at 0. You've probably seen some of my other tutorials where I've said that these lists don't always start at 0. Well, they do on this occasion, okay? And the same with the primitive axis here. They do start at 0 on this occasion there too, okay? But don't take that as written in stone, because it isn't always the case. But that's fantastic. So we've got things that far. We've got that working. Now let's just see if we can find a few more photos. We've only got the one at the moment. It would be nice if we could have some more. So let's just see, I don't know, just type photo in there and see if we can find something regarding that. Oh, there's another one. That'll do. I've used that one. Let's just drop this in there. And now if we generate again, let's just generate. We've got 2 images. We can see that they're there. We've got 2 planes. So we can, if we just come out of here and just come out of here so we can see a little bit more, we can pick this plane up if we wish to and move it into position. You know, we can actually move it somewhere, and we can do whatever we like with it once it's been generated. Obviously at the moment we've got no means of doing that automatically, and that's what we're going to be working on next. But you can see how this is working. It's all doing its job properly, so absolutely perfect. That's what we want. Fantastic. So by the power of editing, I'll bring in a couple more materials and then we'll carry on with the next step. So I've brought in a couple more textures, and we've got them in here. We've got a picture of New York City, and here we've got a picture of my dog. Well, who doesn't like dogs? And my dog, of course, being my dog, is the most beautiful dog in the world. But I'm biased. But anyway, we've got those 2 in and they're ready to go. Moving on from here, what we'll do, we don't need this print size anymore, so I'm going to remove that because we know everything is working. So that's great. We've got that done. And then in here, I'm just going to rotate things by 180 degrees because at the moment things are back to front. That's better. Now we can see this correct. It's actually the right way round because we are in the minus Z, or you know, that's where we are. We've arranged things on the minus Z axis. Okay, fantastic. Let's move on and see what we can do from here. We've got our first loop complete, so we need to create our second. So the first thing we need to do is say for I in range, and it will be in reversed range actually, so reversed brackets range, brackets len, and it will be children, triple close, and we're ready to go on from here. Now, we're going to start with our first plane. So we're going to say if I is equal to 0. And then we can work out what we're going to do with positioning this particular plane. Well, it needs to start basically at ground 0. It starts within planes and it will start at the 0 point. So that's what we need to set up. We need to actually set this up, and in fact the 0 point is here. So we can see that this is at 0 on all 3 axes. For a start, we can say that x will definitely be equal to 0 because we don't want it to move anywhere along the x-axis. We do want it to stay at 0. But we have options with the y and the z. It can stay at 0, or we can move it using what we've created in our random positions here. We can actually start doing something with that. So what we can say is if rand underscore y is equal to true. So rand underscore y, we know that we've got this up here and it's a user data. So with random y, if this is checked, that's what we're testing for here. So if random y or rand y is true, we know that this little box is checked and we want to use the influence. So we can then say range mapper is equal to C4D dot utils dot range map, and it will be brackets, and it will be y underscore influence, comma 0, comma 100, because we know that the influence here starts at 0 and ends at 100, so that's what we brought this in earlier. So 0, comma 100, comma, and then it will be rand underscore y underscore pos brackets I, comma false. That's what we need to put in there. Now we know that we've got random pos I is appended with the random number that we've generated here. So it's going to be a number between minus 2000 and 2000. So we're going to be looking at the number here. And of course it's got to be I because we've got 4 textures. So we're going to be counting from 0 through to 3. But that's what we're going to be doing there. So that takes care of our position Y if we're going to be using the influence down here. Moving on from here, we can then say Y is equal to range mapper, because obviously we want to use what's coming out of the range mapper in this situation. We can then say else, and it will simply be Y is equal to 0. So if we don't want to use this, if this box isn't checked, then Y is going to be equal to 0. Moving on from here, we need to deal with Z. So we can copy all of this code and just make the necessary changes. So we'll copy this, paste it in here, and we can say if rand Z, and I've just realised I need a double equals there and there. Make sure you put 2 equals in there. So if rand Z is equal to true, again we've got the same range mapper values, but we simply need to say rand Z pos in there, and here Z, and once again here Z. And that completes those 2 little bits. One thing I didn't explain here, the reason I've put false in there is because we've got values that range from a minus value to a positive value. That's why you must put false if you're using minus values. I've said this in other tutorials, but there will be people watching who haven't seen any of those. Okay, so that's why we've done that. So let's move on and just get this finished off. We can say vect is equal to, and then it will simply be x, comma, y, comma, z. And then the final line for this section of code, children, square brackets I, dot, and it will be set ABS for absolute pos, brackets, vect. And that will set our planes at the positions that they need to be set at in their Y or along their Y axes. Fantastic. In fact, and of course their Z axes, because we've done both of those now. So their Y and their Z axes, and the X we're going to be leaving at 0. So that's fine. We've got that all sorted out. Before we move on, I must just say Z underscore influence in here. I just noticed I hadn't done that correctly. Okay. We can now say alif, and it will be I is equal to 1. So we've got to do something a little bit special with our second plane as well as our first. In here we can say prev for previous is equal to, and it will be children brackets I minus 1. So we're looking at the previous child from our current child, and we're interested in the width of that plane. That's what we're going to be interested in. So we can say C4D dot prim underscore plane underscore width. That's what we want to get. That's what we're interested in. We can then say current is equal to, copy this line and paste it in here, and we can simply say I. We don't need the -1 there because we're interested in our current child and we want the width of that. Okay, so we've got those two pieces of data. We can now say space is equal to, and this is where we need a formula. So it will be previous, so prev plus current, and we can then divide the result by 2 and add the padding. So we've got these two widths added together. We want half of the result, which will then allow us to place our second plane here butted up to this one if we didn't do any more with that. But we want to add the padding because we want to be able to put a gap between them of our choosing using the padding control here. So that will be between 0 and 500. Don't worry about that, they've just moved back, that's not a problem. But anyway, that's what we need to do there. So we've got that in. Moving on from here, we can just finish this off. So we need to say x is equal to space. That's the first line we need. So x is equal to space. And that will take care of our x-axis, what's going on with our x-axis. We now need to deal with our y and z axes. And we can actually do that quite simply because all we need to do is copy all of this code. But before we do, I think I've just noticed that I've spelled influence wrong. I need to put an F, no, not quite there, in there. And also down here. And there's also another error there. I should have gone 0, 100, 0 rand position Y. So let's just get that sorted out. And I think we've got the same down here. Yes, we have 0 random position Y. That should be right now. Yeah, okay, that's fine. So we can simply then copy all of this code. Let's just get that correct. Just copy that. And we can drop this in here. Okay, so that's sorted that out. So that's our LF situation dealt with. We can now move on and say else, and then deal with our final scenario. And this is for all of the planes that follow the first two. First thing we need to say is pos is equal to, and it will be children, brackets I minus 1 dot get ABS pos. So get absolute position of the previous children. That's what we're interested in. So the children that precede any that follow these two. That's what we're interested in looking at. And we want the absolute positions of them. And we need the absolute position because if we don't factor this in, we're just going to get a stack of cards like we've got now. We've got two cards or two planes stacked on top of each other. So we need this to factor in order to stop that from happening. We can then copy these two lines once again and paste them in here. So we've got it that far. And then we need to say x is equal to, and it will be pos dot x. So we, from our absolute position, we simply want the x axis because of course we're placing our planes and they're going to be going in this direction at intervals moving along the x-axis, and that's why we need x to currently be pos.x. We can then say space is equal to, we do want this much, so we can just place that in there. But then we can say plus X plus padding. That's the formula that we need to use this time. So that factors in our X position. And that's the all-important part that makes this work, as I said earlier. Okay, fantastic. So we've got that worked out. We can then say X is equal to space. So as I said here, that was just a temporary value for X. This is our final value. And then once again, all we need to do is copy this code and paste it under here. And that completes the code. That's as much as we need to do. So yeah, there's a fair amount, but when you think about it, it's just a couple of loops really. One that generates the planes and one that positions them. That's really all this is. And there's a heck of a lot of repetition. As you saw, a lot of cutting and pasting is possible here because there's a lot of stuff that's repeated. But anyway, now we've come to the moment of truth. So let's see what happens. Right, what have we got here? 108. Let's see if we've got an error in there. What have we got? Rand Y position. Have I got a bracket missing somewhere? I may have. Where are we? Rand Y position. No, it doesn't look as if I have. All right, we'll leave that for a second. Let's just see what happens when we generate. Let's just clear this out. See if anything goes terribly wrong when we generate. Well, no, everything's fine. We've got 4 planes and they've got the textures. So that's all working. Okay. Let's just zoom out a little bit so that we can see what we're doing. And then we can just touch this. Right, what have we got there? Let's have a look. Well, I seem to have 3 planes positioned correctly, but the 4th one doesn't seem to be positioned correctly, so I've obviously got some error in there somewhere. I'll take a quick look at it and then find the error and come back to you. Okay, after a bit of head scratching, and it has to be said, a fair amount of swearing, I've found out what the problem is. Right, what we've got, if we look at this asset browser here, picture of my dog is in there. Now, it doesn't like the fact that this is being taken from here and dropped into here for some reason. What I've got to do is get rid of this texture, so we'll delete that one. Let's just close the asset browser. And I've basically got to reload the texture. Just get rid of screen flow for a minute. In my miscellaneous folder here, I've got the picture of my dog, which is here. If I grab a hold of this and we get it into C4D, let's just go back there, grab a hold of that and drop this in, we can say no in here. If I say yes, that will cause the problem. So I'm going to say no, bring this over here. And now if I select my tag and regenerate, we suddenly get all the images. I don't know, answers on a postcard. You tell me why that's a problem. I've got no idea. But as you can see, we generated everything here. We can control our Z and our Y axes. We've got those working. They're all doing exactly what they should be doing. So that's all working for us. And yes, the code is absolutely correct and everything's working. But, oh dear, I just don't understand it. It's just really, really weird that didn't like the fact that I dragged the image from here into there. Really bizarre. But anyway, that's something you need to watch out for. But yeah, I mean, that's essentially how you go about making an auto plane generator that has some control over where you can position the actual planes. So yeah, that's how you go about doing it. So that just about brings us to the end of this tutorial. And as always, I really hope that this one has inspired you and given you some ideas for things you can do with your own projects. And if you have enjoyed the video, then please give it a like. And if you haven't already, then please do subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and of course, ring the bell. And wherever you happen to be on social media, then please do share this video, because all this good stuff really does help keep the channel moving in the right direction. But anyway, that just about brings the curtain down on this one, so I'll see you very soon on the next tutorial.